Greetings. In this video we're going to look at the E major scale on page 35 of the Julio Sagreras Guitar Lessons Book 1. I will provide a link in the description below to this book. I encourage you to learn these scales. They're very useful for dialing in some basic techniques. And this one is especially challenging because it really challenges us to open up our hand. If we do the exact fingering that's in the book, we really need to stretch out and conquer some really awkward angles. But by doing this, it teaches us how to do this very process in a real piece of music. So if we want to be able to do rapid scale passages in this region of the guitar, the first position on the bass strings, it's very useful to practice this and get used to exactly how do we place our hand in order to conquer this. Here's how the scale sounds. I would encourage you to learn it, get the book, and match the fingering exactly. You can also slow down the video if you want to follow along to what I just did. Let's go ahead and look at how we do this. Now what we want to do is keep our hand very low to the fretboard. What I mean by that is that instead of having a large gap between my fingers and the strings, my fingers are going to stay very close. You can see how all four of these fingers are just barely off of the strings. So when we stretch out our hand, we're going to have some of these situations where fingers are going to want to pop a little bit further away. And as long as that finger is not needed soon, like for example, my ring finger isn't used for the first two strings, so he doesn't matter too much. And if I'm stretching out my hand and there's a sympathetic pullback in that finger, that's okay as long as it's not muting notes or bumping strings. We need to keep the fingers that we're using close to the strings. Now, another aspect of this, so besides how far from the strings am I staying, there's also what's the placement of my hand. Now, we often want to lock into one position and reach further and further and further. I would recommend that we practice using our fingertips and we allow our hand to creep up like this. So if you were to watch where my knuckles are, when I'm up here by the first string, they're right here. And then as I move up, they actually hover over the fretboard. Let's go ahead and move very slowly through this scale. So I have my open E, and right now I'm hovering my pinky and my middle finger right over where they're needed. So go ahead and pick the open string. I just move my middle finger a little bit, and then I place my pinky. I open string, and I'm keeping these two fingers very close by because they're needed. And as I'm playing with my pinky here on this C sharp, I'm going to go ahead and pre-align my index finger. Now, one thing you'll notice, I'm somewhat going on the side of my index finger. The reason for that is when we have a bigger stretch to do, we need to make it easier for our weaker fingers to play what they need to play. Well, our index finger is very strong and has a great range of mobility sideways. So, if I make it as easy as I can for my pinky, which basically means place my middle finger right next to this fret. So here on B, my middle finger is right next to that B, that second fret, and my pinky can reach the middle of that C sharp on its tip. And then my index finger is strong enough to get a nice clear attack because I'm favoring my pinky because it's a weaker finger, so my index finger does more work and just kind of reaches out sideways and grabs that D sharp. So from B, I have B and I'm aligning my C sharp, play that C sharp and align the D sharp. So we're starting to have this cycle of consistently aligning the next step during our present step. So B align C sharp align D sharp align E, F sharp, G sharp, A, open B, C sharp, and now you'll notice my hand is kind of rotated into a newer position where my pinky is going to easily be able to grab this D sharp. So C sharp, D sharp, E, and then back. I have already pre-aligned this pinky. He's staying really close to the string. So from D sharp ascending, E, and I kept my pinky very close. And while I'm playing that pinky, I align my middle finger. Remember, we use kind of the pad or side of our index finger so that we can go ahead and align our pinky nicely. And as soon as here I am on F sharp, I'm going to play this E and I'm going to go ahead and align this next C sharp before I even need it. I can place my pinky on that string 2 notes before it's needed. Whoops, I need that D sharp in there. There we go. So F sharp, E, D sharp, and my pinky is already aligned. So especially descending, I would practice that. I'm going to start on F sharp. I play the F sharp, I play the E, and I immediately place my pinky on the next string. And again, I place my pinky before he's needed. I skipped that A. It's hard to talk about this and do it at the same time, but you get the idea. So nice and slow. We're going to be practicing just anticipating every movement before it's needed. You can go ahead and look closely at my left hand and you'll see how I anticipate a note before I actually play it. So my fingers are lined up. Both of them are lined up. Hand is shifting back. And then my hand's going to begin to shift back down. My pinky's already down. Pinky's already down. Pinky's already down. And that is how you keep your fingers very nice and close and barely move in order to play this scale. If you can do that, you can take it a little faster, take it a little faster, take it a little faster, and of course this will stretch out your hand. It'll develop these muscles that pull your fingers apart, which they're going to need to be trained if we're going to start to do some of these weird fingerings that come up in real pieces of music. So I encourage you to wrestle with this. This is a great scale for opening up your hand and practicing anticipating fingerings that are just a little bit tricky to reach. Thank you for watching, and I hope this is helpful.